Is this seriously my family? Such a question was forced upon me. Just showing their good side with smiles on their faces, not knowing what they're really thinking. It didn't take long for me to grow to dislike such a family. My name is Samantha, a 28-year-old housewife. I got married a year ago and have been living with my family at my childhood home. This happened due to 3 reasons. The first is that my father's company went bankrupt and he couldn't find a new job. The second reason is because my older brother Ryan is jobless. Being the eldest son and jobless is unacceptable, and it seems like my father is putting all his bets on my husband Alex. Ryan claims to be a YouTuber, and despite him saying that it's his job, from our parents' perspective, nothing has changed. He is just as jobless as before. And the third reason is my mother has terminal cancer. She was given 2 years to live. When my marriage was decided, it all happened in quick succession. My father asked my husband Alex to live together. Alex had a close relationship with my father, often drinking together, so he didn't hesitate to agree. Given my mother's situation, I also agreed with the arrangement and was grateful to Alex. I wanted to take care of my parents as much as possible, but after a year of living together since our marriage, I started to get annoyed with my brother Ryan.
It's been a while. Why are you just a housewife? Even though Dad is jobless, isn't it strange that you're not working?
Do you realize what's going on with Mom? What would happen if I didn't handle the house chores? The laundry and meals for you, Ryan? I am the one doing it.
You sound so sarcastic.
And yet you dare to speak to me in such a way. Besides, I work from home.
Work from home? Ah, you mean some penny-earning side job. That's not called work.
I don't want to hear this from you, Ryan.
Go find a real job, got it?
I had no reason to be spoken to like that, and it infuriated me. His accusations made me feel as if I were entirely in the wrong, cornering me. When I consulted with Alex, he merely said,
"He must be stressed, just ignore him,"
showing no understanding of my situation. I was worried about my mom and was doing everything I could for her, so my brother's behavior only added to my annoyance. I couldn't help but wonder if he even cared about our mom at all. His cold-heartedness seemed apparent. I started to feel more and more stressed. Hey, it seems like my workload is going to increase. If that happens, I won't have any time for myself, so I might not be able to go to our usual spa visits.
Well, I don't mind that, but it would be a problem if you couldn't handle things at home. After all, we've got to take care of my mother-in-law.
I get it. I won't neglect my responsibilities.
Do you need some money or something?
No, that's not it. But can you come with me for the weekend grocery shopping? If I shop for the whole week at once, I can free up some time for work.
You're really determined, huh? All right, we'll drive there.
I didn't want to waste time, so I decided to buy a week's worth of groceries on the weekend to avoid multiple shopping trips. Then an incident occurred.
Samantha, you've stolen my money.
Suddenly, my husband accused me of theft. I had no idea what he was talking about, let alone what money he was referring to. He had decided that it was me, his face turning beet red with anger. I couldn't understand why he would think it was me. I was the one who should be angry. It's not right to blame others. Was it stolen from your wallet?
Don't play dumb. The $3,000 I put in the drawer is gone.
$3,000?
Yes. Return it now and we'll forget this happened.
Hold on, why am I the one to blame? I didn't even know you were keeping such a large sum in the drawer.
But you said you were going to increase your workload recently. I thought it was suspicious. I can't believe you're that kind of woman.
No, you're getting it all wrong. Please, believe me.
I'm sorry, but I can't trust you anymore. Don't mess with me. Give it back now. I said give it back.
Enough. If you're going to doubt me that much, then go ahead and doubt.
Get out, criminal.
I'll leave by the end of today. I lost my temper and retorted harshly. Treated as a criminal by my family, I was driven out of the house. However, the following day, I received a frantic call from my brother Ryan.
Mom's in a terrible state.
What?
As soon as she found out you left, she's been panicking and screaming. You need to come back and calm her down.
I won't go back to that house anymore. I'll leave Mom in your hands, Ryan. You've never done anything before, so it's about time you stepped up. With a hardened heart, I responded in such a manner. But honestly, I didn't want to do this. I was torn between my pride and my concern for Mom.
Cut the crap. This is too much for me. She only listens to you, so just come back. Even your husband Alex doesn't know what to do.
I don't care. You reap what you sow. I won't go back, and I'm getting a divorce.
I don't care about that. It doesn't concern me whatever happens to you. If that's the case, you should take Mom with you.
This is Mom and Dad's house. Why should I be the one to leave? If someone's leaving, it should be you, Ryan. If you're working, you should be independent.
I'm the eldest son. This place is mine. There's no way I'm leaving.
You're so shameless. Have you ever considered Mom's feelings? She's currently battling an illness. I'll come back, but only if you leave, Ryan. Those are my terms.
I can't do that. It's obviously impossible. Stop being so selfish and come back already.
Even in such a situation, Ryan was still stubborn and selfish. Meanwhile, Alex hadn't been in touch, and it seemed like he had the nerve to continue staying at the house. Perhaps feeling awkward, he'd only come home to sleep and ate all his meals outside. My leaving seemed to have caused the family to fall apart. I didn't realize our family was so fragile. Then, after a month had passed, Alex finally contacted me.
Hey, how long are you going to sulk? Get back here already. Your mother-in-law is unmanageable, and it's becoming a real issue.
I will proceed with the divorce. Once that's settled and you've left, of course I'll come back.
You're really thinking about that?
Obviously, I've been treated like a criminal and kicked out of my own home.
That was just a heated exchange, wasn't it?
You doubted your own family. I feel like I failed in life. There was no trust.
Don't be childish. It's a fact that the money is gone. Who else could it be but you?
It's ridiculous to suspect me without any evidence.
Stop your nagging. Give back the money. If you return it, everything will be settled. You're the one being foolish.
Enough with the insult.
It's a fact that you wanted money at that time. It all adds up. It could only have been you, criminal.
Enough. Want to know why I was trying to earn money?
Like I care. You probably wanted to buy some worthless jewelry or something, right? You couldn't wait to get your hands on that money.
What's tomorrow?
Huh?
I can't believe it. You don't even remember your own birthday.
My birthday? Wait, don't tell me.
That's right. Just as you guessed. I thought it was about time you got a new suit. And since you said you wanted a custom-made one, I was saving money for it, but it wasn't enough.
Fool, you know custom-made suits are expensive and we can't afford it.
That's why I wanted to gift it to you so badly. And yet you accused me of stealing the money, and that hurt me.
Wait a minute. I didn't know. Forgive me. It's not something to get so angry about, right?
I can't forgive you. The most important thing is missing, so it's over. I'm sorry, but all I can think of is divorce. That's why I've asked a lawyer to handle it.
Huh? An attorney? Stop that.
I want to settle this quickly and go back to my mom's.
I don't want to. I won't get a divorce. And I won't leave this house. We're supposed to inherit this house.
Huh? My decision to divorce was further cemented by the fact that Alex's attitude hadn't changed. If Alex continues with this mindset, the divorce is likely to get messy. However, I remained unshaken. As I was thinking about all this, my brother reached out to me again.
Samantha, cut it out. You need to come back now.
No way!
Why did you keep quiet?
What?
Mom spilled the beans. She said you've been paying the mortgage on this house. Moreover, you've been covering all the living expenses too.
Isn't it strange that you didn't know about it? An odd job wouldn't be enough to cover the expenses.
But we can't pay the mortgage.
What are you talking about? You have a job, but you haven't put a single cent into the house. You should be the one to pay it.
Well, yes, but I bought a computer. A high-end one. It was expensive.
What? You bought a computer?
Because I needed it for my job. What else could I do?
Oh, so you're making enough to buy such a thing? Then you should be able to pay the house mortgage, right?
I told you I can't pay. Your husband isn't contributing to the living expenses either. What's going on?
Until now, I've been covering those with my money, but now that Alex is eating out every meal, there's no spare money.
So what are we supposed to do? Hurry up and figure something out. If we don't pay the mortgage here, we'll have nowhere to live. What about Mom and Dad?
I had reached the end of my patience with my brother's selfish thinking. Just stop it already. Who cares about your video game streaming? You have less than 100 subscribers. The number of views is in the single digits. You won't make any money that way. Nobody watches it because it's not interesting.
How do you know that?
I just searched for video game streaming and it came right up. Wearing a mask and sunglasses doesn't make you unrecognizable. How did you buy a computer with that? Don't tell me you.
I didn't steal any money from your husband.
How do you know about that? Something's fishy.
Well, that's right. I overheard you two talking.
What? Nobody was at home when we had this big argument. You were out, which is unusual for you.
That's a misunderstanding. You got the dates wrong. It's a mix-up.
Stop messing around. You're the one who stole it, right? If you don't confess, I'm going to file a police report.
Well, wait, a police report? No, please stop. I just found some money and I just borrowed it. I swear I'll pay it back.
Don't give me that crap. I will never forgive you. Get out of my house now. I'll be back home tomorrow, and if you're not gone by then, I'm calling the cops.
Don't say things like that. We're siblings. We're family. Can't things just stay the way they've always been?
Don't try to smooth talk your way out of this. I will never forgive you. Just remember that. Leave before I get back tomorrow. You've been warned.
Don't make decisions without me. I'm your older brother. Cut me some slack, please.
Without responding to my brother, I just hung up the phone. It seems like he kept calling like a madman after that, but I turned my phone off and ignored all of it. The next day in the morning, I returned home. I'm home. My mother rushed to greet me. Mom, you're back. I'm so glad. I never realized just how important you are to us, Samantha. I'm so sorry. Hold on, it's not your fault, Mom. As we were talking in the living room, my brother Ryan emerged from his room. And then he uttered unbelievable words.
So you finally came back. Here's the details for the loan repayment. Make sure to transfer it today. Also, I've got a tab running at the delivery place, so you can take care of that too. It's your fault for running off like this. Reflect on your actions.
What the hell are you talking about? Stop messing around. I told you to leave. I will call the cops.
You're throwing your life away over just $3,000. What? $3,000? Don't tell me you. Don't whine just because I borrowed a little. You're making a big deal out of nothing. Big deal? You steal my money then say I'm making a big deal? That's not right, is it? Can I get it back? I don't remember lending it to you. You, living here on my generosity, shouldn't be so bold. We're family. It's okay, right? No, it's not okay. Give it back. Are you sure you want to go on like this? You might not be able to live here anymore.
Seeing Alex and my brother arguing, my father stood up. No way, my mild-mannered father?
Enough. Both of you get out. This house, it's my house. And currently, it's Samantha who's paying the mortgage. I won't give it to anyone. I may be the eldest son of this house, but why is my sister taking over? You're only the eldest son in name. What have you done? You've been a shut-in, playing games all the time. You never got a job, just living off the money I earned, right? You're over 40. Grow up. Get out. That's too much. Isn't it cruel to tell a man with no money to leave? I've been saying this for a long time. This isn't a new issue. You could sell that computer you have. You're not even working. Wait a minute. When I say get out. That goes for you too. What? But I haven't done anything. Haven't done anything? Who drove Samantha out, treating her like a criminal? A marriage is built on trust. Once it's broken, it's impossible to stay a family. I'm sorry, I apologize. But the one who stole was your son, Ryan, wasn't it? Don't blame just me. You got close to me, pretending to be friends, planning to inherit all of my assets, right? The moment I lost my job when the company went bankrupt, you treated me coldly. Because I'm a poor father with no money, right?
How terrible. What a horrible person. I don't want to see your face.
Now get out. Don't mess with me.
I was stunned by my father's words. Perhaps the sudden action of my father was the result of him reaching his limit. The divorce with Alex was successfully processed and it ended abruptly. It felt refreshing as I thought it would be more complicated, but after that, Alex contacted me multiple times. Apparently, the reason for our divorce had become the talk of his workplace, and he couldn't stand it, so he quit. He needs to realize that relying on other people's money won't get him anywhere. And my brother seems to be living in poverty, working a cleaning job at the station. A late employment indeed. As for me, I have no choice but to do my best, hoping for my mother to live as long as possible. Our family is restarting with the three of us, and our bright home life has returned.
Are you making fun of me? Isn't it customary to bring high-end desserts?
My business partner scoffed at me for bringing my wife's homemade pudding as a gift.
There's no way we can serve this shabby-looking pudding to the president,
he said, then he snatched the bag of pudding from my hand and threw it into the trash can. A sad sound echoed in the room. I was left speechless at this sudden incident. Overwhelmed by anger and frustration at not being able to do anything, I returned home. "That man's getting fired," said my wife with a mischievous grin. I was surprised by her smile, which was different from usual. The next day, I was invited to the president's office and was shocked by the unexpected turn of events. My name is Danny Klein, and this is my 10th year working as an office worker. I'm about to take a gift to a business partner, but I'm quite nervous. The reason being that the person I'm about to see is known to be difficult to work with. A man named Walter Morris. If you don't bring a gift he likes, he won't even have a proper conversation with you. At worst, he would say, "Something urgent has come up," and he'd send you back right away. Still, he's an important business partner, so I had to put up with him. One day, my manager came to my desk and said, "That company's patented technology is indeed excellent. You know that it has significantly grown our company." "Yes, but I also do notice that they've turned arrogant because of it." "Indeed, we used to work hand in hand to create better products." My manager's eyes narrowed as if remembering something, then he turned a sympathetic gaze on me. I let out a bitter laugh and ran my hand through my hair at the back of my head. "I've heard that the president and his wife are kind people, despite the current partner, the person in charge, being a difficult man. I hope for things to get better soon." "Indeed, it should improve in a while. It's tough, but that's part of the job." "Thank you, I'll do my best. But picking a gift each time is a headache. He accuses me of slacking off if I bring the same ones." "The gift? Oh, by the way, I remember that the president's wife is quite fond of pudding. If you have a chance to meet them again, how about buying a pudding?" Upon hearing my manager's words, I thought of a pudding from a particular store. Its texture was as smooth as cream and it melted in your mouth. It was a pudding that perfectly balanced richness and sweetness. The pudding made by my wife, Lily. Lily runs a small pastry shop that she has created by renovating a part of our house. Of course, the taste is guaranteed. It's a popular product that's loved by everyone in the neighborhood, from kids to seniors, often selling out by mid-afternoon. I wrapped up a conversation with my boss and decided to rush home after work. At home, Lily, who had finished her work, had started preparing dinner in the kitchen. As I approached Lily, I could smell a faint sweetness. Humming a tune and greeting me with, "Welcome home," I immediately told Lily about the conversation I had earlier.
The boss's wife seems to be a big fan of pudding. I'd like to take some as a gift. Could you make some?
Do you think my pudding would be good enough? Lily said this, but I could see she was smiling with delight, which relieved me. Even though Lily is great at making puddings, preparing it as a gift for the wife of my business partner is probably nerve-wracking. But Lily willingly said okay. As soon as she finished making dinner, she started prepping for the pudding without having her dinner, saying she needed to prepare for tomorrow.
Thank you, Lily. I'm sorry.
No problem. I want many people to taste my pudding. Saying so, Lily busily started the prep, moving back and forth between the kitchen and the shop. Seeing her like this, I couldn't just stand there doing nothing. I decided to help Lily with the prep by following her instructions. That day, we ended up going to bed later than usual. Looking forward to seeing the boss and his wife's reaction tomorrow, I immediately fell asleep. The next morning when I woke up, Lily was already awake and popped her head out from the shop wearing a white apron. "It's ready!" On the tray in Lily's hand were several puddings cutely wrapped.
Thank you, Lily.
I didn't know what time she woke up to do all this, but I could feel the effort Lily put into it, and I thanked her multiple times. Lily, seeming a bit shy, laughed and said, "It didn't take that long because you helped me." As I recalled the morning's events, a smile spread across my face. I carefully placed the puddings, wrapped in white paper bags with blue ribbons, on the passenger seat and let out a sigh. With renewed determination, I started up the company car. There shouldn't be any problem if it's Lily's pudding. It will definitely go well. That's what I believed. Until I heard a voice trampling on my feelings.
What is this?
As always, I mentioned Walter's name to the smiling receptionist at the client's entrance and was told to wait a bit. I gently sat on the chair in the entrance, checking to make sure the pudding in the bag wasn't overturned. While waiting, I saw Walter, who had just a hint of a smile, coming from the elevator right next to the entrance. And when he peered at what was in my hands, the first thing he said was, "What is this?" in a dubious tone. I involuntarily flinched. Nonetheless, I replied, trying to appear unfazed. "It's just a little something. It's pudding. My wife, who runs a pastry shop, made it." However, my words were cut off by Walter's scoff. "Pudding? Are you making fun of me? Isn't it customary to bring high-end desserts?" His words were dripping with scorn. His eyes were narrowed and the corner of his mouth was slightly raised as if to mock. At first, I didn't understand what he was saying, but as I slowly realized, I noticed that my fists were trembling in rage. My partner was a client with whom we'd been working amicably so far. I couldn't afford to ruin that relationship here, so I swallowed my feelings and started to speak. "Although not high-end, my wife has been making puddings that are pretty popular." "No way! I can't possibly eat a pudding made by an amateur." Walter roughly snatched the bag of pudding from my hand. "What are you doing?" I was so surprised that I snapped at him. My anxious voice and Walter's dry laugh echoed throughout the entrance. The receptionist who had attended to me earlier and some employees who just happened to pass by were looking at us suspiciously. "I'm bothered by being presented with such trashy stuff." Walter lifted the bag to his face and narrowed his eyes as if examining it. While I felt my blood rising to my head, I struggled to maintain my composure.
"But I heard it's the CEO's wife's favorite." "Even so, would you bring something made by an amateur?" "My wife is certainly not an amateur." "Even so, You must understand that I can't serve such an unsightly pudding to the president." With that, Walter let go of the bag he was holding over the trash can placed next to the chair. It all happened in an instant. My body couldn't react in time, and I could only stand there in silence. The bag with the pudding inside fell into the trash can, making a sorrowful sound. A small scream came from the receptionist's direction. "I'll dispose it for you today. Just be careful next time," he said, his voice laced with what sounded like utter annoyance. All I could do was stare at the discarded pudding and utter an almost inaudible, I'm sorry." Walter nodded silently, whether satisfied by my reaction, I wasn't sure. "I had some urgent matters come up. I hate to ask, but can you leave?" Without waiting for my reply, he turned on his heel and walked towards the elevator. Throughout all this, I remained frozen, unable to take my eyes off the discarded pudding. I don't know how much time passed, but before I knew it, I was back in my car that my company had provided. Remembering how hard Lily had worked to make the pudding made my heart ache, and an uncontrollable anger welled up within me. Above all, I was frustrated with myself for not being able to say or do anything because he was a business partner. I couldn't get any work done that day as I pondered what to tell Lily. "Did they enjoy the pudding?" Lily asked, smiling as I returned home. She was leisurely sipping tea on the couch. Caught off guard, I stopped untying my tie. "Did something happen?" Lily asked, leaning in with a worried look on her face. Unable to keep quiet, I finally confessed to Lily what had happened earlier in the day. "I'm sorry, the pudding you made with so much effort, he threw it away right in front of me." Lily looked surprised at my confession, but she immediately squeezed my hand gently. "It's not your fault. Maybe there was something wrong with the pudding." But I knew that wasn't the case. After all, Walter had thrown it into the trash without even looking inside the bag. Even if it hadn't been pudding, if it wasn't what Walter called a fine pastry, it probably would have ended up in the trash. And besides, Lily stops me as I attempt to apologize once again. Then she seems to ponder a bit, and with a cheeky grin she says, "That man's getting fired." "Fired?"
I'm just kidding. Though it might not have been perfect, it's a shame to hear that the pudding I put so much effort into making was thrown away. Lily chuckles softly. Her reaction's fair, having her pudding thrown away like that after she put so much work in. Of course she would want to make remarks about my rude client, even though it's unlike her. But it could very well happen, you know. Her enigmatic words added at the end left me somewhat baffled. But that was the end of the conversation. Lily urged me to wash up early that night, so I bathed in confusion and went to bed earlier than usual. The next day, with yesterday's incident still weighing on me, I left for work with a heavy heart. Upon returning to the office the day before, my boss had instructed, "I know it's not ideal, but tomorrow you need to buy a cake from the high-end Western confectionery store in front of the station." I recalled his words before leaving home and brought a cake from the pastry shop in front of the station on my way to work. I placed the box from the high-end Western pastry shop on the passenger seat and let out a sigh deeper than yesterday's. Yesterday evening, I had informed Walter that I will visit again tomorrow with a token of apology. Perhaps due to the incident, Walter responded in an overly arrogant tone. "All right, I'm counting on you this time," and hung up the call. I should get going now. In the driver's seat of my company's car, I somehow motivated myself and headed towards the client's office. As I walked through the automatic doors of the entrance, a receptionist who recognized me hurried over. "You're Mr. Klein from Company XX, correct?"
"Yes, that's right, but..."
"Please come this way." I followed the receptionist's lead and stepped into the elevator. Before I knew what was going on, the elevator had reached its destination floor. The room I was led to was the president's office. The receptionist knocked on the door a few times and, opening the large door, simply said, "Please come in." I entered the room without understanding the situation. Inside the president's office were the president of the client company, his wife, and Walter looking pale. I had thought that he would act haughty again today due to yesterday's incident, but I was mistaken. "Nice to meet you. I'm Danny Klein from Company XX. Thank you for having me here today." With a question mark hovering over my head, I greeted the president of the company we were dealing with, Mr. Peterson.
You must be Danny. Nice to meet you. I'm Mr. Peterson. This is my wife, Anne.
Nice to meet you. Cutting the greeting short, Mr. Peterson and his wife exchanged glances, called out my name Danny, and bowed deeply.
We are truly sorry for what happened. We apologize.
I beg your pardon? I asked, surprised by the sudden change in the president's tone. Next to the president, his wife was also bowing with a speechless expression. I hurriedly told them to please lift your heads, but they wouldn't. Next thing I know, Walter, standing diagonally behind them, was also bowing.
We are terribly sorry.
The usual arrogant Walter was nowhere to be found. Instead, I saw him apologizing with careful words for the first time. Caught off guard, I was at a loss for words.
Actually, yesterday, my wife noticed something in the lobby trash can while cleaning.
He continued. His wife nodded in agreement. I thought I saw a hint of anger in her eyes.
When she asked around, she was told that the pudding you brought earlier in the day had been rudely thrown away by him. We hurriedly called him to confirm, and at first he denied it, but later grudgingly admitted it.
A cold glance from Mr. Peterson was directed at Walter. Upon noticing the gaze, Walter bit his lip and turned away.
I did not know that Mrs. Peterson liked pudding. I assumed it was a lie from Danny, and I threw it away without thinking twice. I am sorry.
His voice was quieter than I had ever heard before. As I was stunned by the un-Walter-like attitude, Mrs. Peterson shook her head with a stern face. That's not why I'm angry. Mrs. Peterson, who had been silent until now, muttered in an anger-laced voice as if to correct him. Danny, I have also known about the pudding from Lily's store for a while. I also knew it was so popular that it always sold out. Despite being so busy, you had prepared the pudding for me. Unable to endure Mrs. Peterson's gaze, Walter whimpered.
My wife can't forgive you for trampling on the goodwill of the makers, you, Danny, and Lily. I can't believe an employee of a manufacturing company doesn't understand the value of the thoughts poured into a product.
I was shocked. Not just because Mrs. Peterson knew about Lily's store, but because she understood the feelings of a craftsman in the manufacturing process. Walter, who had turned from pale to white, began to say,
I'm sorry,
but Mr. Peterson immediately pointed out,
face the person you're apologizing to,
and made him lift his pale face.
I sincerely apologize for carelessly discarding the handmade gift from your wife yesterday without thinking twice.
Walter, who berated and threw away my wife's pudding yesterday, was now apologizing to me, facing me straight and repeatedly bowing his head. In that moment, I felt something clearing up within me. After coming home, I saw Lily drinking tea on the sofa, just like yesterday. Without even greeting her, I'm back, I began to talk about today's events. Lily, without interrupting me, listened till the end, then smiled and said, That's what I thought.
That's what I thought? You knew this would happen?
Her attitude since yesterday suggested she had expected all of this. Lily stood up and brought a cup of tea for me from the kitchen. As she handed it to me, she began to speak. Actually, yesterday evening, a pale-looking man in a suit came to buy our pudding, but it was already sold out. But he told me that the wife of his company's CEO is a big fan of our pudding, so...
Could it be?
The president's wife that he was referring to must be Ann Peterson. Lily nodded affirmatively, her face beaming with joy. It feels so good to know there are people who understand and appreciate the thoughts of us producers. It makes me want to make even better things for such people. Lily, still smiling, took a sip of her tea. Seeing her genuinely happy, I felt like I truly understood the words of Mr. and Mrs. Peterson. At the same time, I felt remorse. Did I truly understand and value the thoughts of the producers like Lily does while I did my job? I was angry at Walter's arrogance, but was it not because I felt like we were doing him a favor by selling our products? Maybe I was also the one getting carried away. Like Lily, shouldn't I perform work that will deliver the thoughts of creators to consumers? I can't really call out Walter for his arrogance anymore. While I was contemplating all this, Lily noticed something and gently placed her hand on my shoulder. From now on, perhaps you'll consider both the creators and the users' perspectives. At Lily's words, I felt a bit embarrassed, but more than that, I felt ready to face my job with a renewed perspective. After this chain of events, Walter's attitude changed dramatically. He was no longer cocky and didn't demand gifts anymore. We now share our opinions openly in a good way, improving our relationship. Just like Lily, I also want to continue delivering the creator's thoughts to users through my work.
Did my child get born while I was on my trip? My son-in-law called with an easygoing tone, oblivious to the funeral that was about to happen. Yes, the child was safely born, I responded, being unexpectedly on the receiving end of my daughter's cell phone call. I heard him click his tongue in disappointment. Damn it. Please switch me to my wife. I'd like to talk to her directly. Your wife has passed away. What? Come to the funeral immediately. Don't joke around. That's too harsh, man. My son-in-law laughed off my words in disbelief. All of this is your fault. You must pay for it, I muttered under my breath and hung up the phone. My name is Mary, 58 years old. Just a few days ago, I had a daughter who was turning 30. Now she lies peacefully in a white coffin. I touch her cold cheek and whisper to her, Karen. But there's no response. As I look at her doll-like face, recent events replay in my mind. If only I had rushed to Karen sooner that time. Just thinking about it fills me with an unbearable regret, and tears overflow endlessly. 1 week ago, my daughter, who lives far away, called me with a worried voice. Mom, what do I do? I'm starting to feel contractions and I'm so scared. It's your first time giving birth. It's only natural you'd be scared. I called the hospital and they told me to come in when the contractions are 10 minutes apart, but I'm alone and feeling vulnerable. Isn't your husband at work and your mother-in-law living with you? However, despite knowing the due date, my son-in-law and his mother had booked a trip abroad. You'll be fine with the midwife when you give birth. The two of them left my daughter alone as she started to have contractions. I was taken aback by their callousness. I advised my daughter to take a cab to the hospital if the pain got too severe, and immediately hopped in my car. It's strange that my usually lively daughter to sound so down. My house is about a 3-hour drive from where my daughter lives, but of course I got stuck in traffic and it ended up taking me 5 hours to get there. When I finally arrived at my daughter's house, it was already dark and the surroundings were pitch black. Yet there were no lights on in the house. Did she go to the hospital? Or surely not. Shaking off an ominous feeling, I opened the front door only to find my daughter collapsed there. In a panic, I cradled her in my arms, her clothes soaking wet, seemingly due to her water breaking, and the floor was drenched as well. Moreover, her face looked so haggard it was hard to believe she was in her last month of pregnancy. I called an ambulance as I tried to suppress my trembling hands. Once we arrived at the hospital and she regained consciousness, it was determined she couldn't give birth naturally, and she was taken to the operating room. Please, let both my daughter and her baby be okay, I prayed fervently outside the operating room. After a while, I heard a baby's cry, and the doctor emerged from behind the door, informing me, "It's a healthy baby girl." Just as I breathed a sigh of relief, the doctor, with a stern face, uttered unthinkable words. "Your daughter lost a lot of blood, and her strength has been severely depleted. We need to monitor her closely for a while. Please be prepared for the worst." "What? No, that can't—" My daughter, who had just been wheeled out of the operating room and into her hospital room, was utterly exhausted. My daughter was in such a state, with countless needles in her arms and an oxygen mask on her face. The joy of my granddaughter's birth was overshadowed by concern for my daughter, Karen. Perhaps to cheer us up, the nurse allowed Karen to hold her newborn daughter. Upon doing so, Karen opened her eyes slightly and smiled, and shed tears of joy, saying, "I'm glad you were born safely." 2 days later, I was able to have a conversation with my daughter, who had regained a bit of strength. "Sorry for causing you trouble, Mom. As long as you and the baby are safe, that's all that matters. I asked my husband if I could give birth at my parents' house, but he rejected the idea. I thought he'd at least cancel his trip. He's awful for leaving you in labor like that. Yeah, I might not be able to protect the baby if things stay like this." My daughter, seeming determined, asked me for a favor. That same day, I completed what she asked, and when I reported back, Karen, looking relieved, closed her eyes and fell back asleep. "I wish she would recover. She's so pale." I prayed desperately over and over, but my hopes did not reach the heavens, and Karen's condition worsened day by day. During this time, I called her husband countless times, but all my calls went unanswered. 3 days later, despite our efforts, my daughter departed this world, leaving behind her newborn child. Karen's last words were heartbreaking. "I'm sorry for being such a failure of a daughter. Please protect the baby, Mom." She wasn't the type to say such things. "Karen, I'm sorry I couldn't get to you sooner." My heart was overwhelmed with grief and pain at losing my precious daughter, but I couldn't just wallow in sorrow. I made countless calls to my son-in-law's mobile phone to inform him of Karen's death, but he never picked up. In sheer desperation, I headed to my daughter's home to look up the phone number of the hotel she was staying at during her trip. While there, searching for anything like an itinerary, I stumbled upon my daughter's diary in a drawer. What in the world? This is horrible. The diary contained a truth far beyond my imagination. As I continued reading, I discovered the real meaning behind my daughter's words when she called herself a failure of a daughter. Overwhelmed with trembling hands and a heart that wouldn't stop shaking, I crouched down right there on the spot. "I will never forgive them for causing my child such pain. I'll make them regret this." I held my daughter's diary close to my heart, making that vow with determination. Several days later, her carefree son-in-law returned my call. "I'm back in the States. It's the return of the Lord and Master. Has the baby been born safely?" "Yes, the baby is full of life." This is my wife's phone, right? The voice seems different." "Oh, you're right. It's been a while, Richard. I'm Karen's mother." "Oh, it's my mother-in-law. You should have said so sooner. Hurry up and let me talk to Karen." "I'm afraid I can't do that. Our daughter has passed away." "What?" "It's your fault for leaving her alone when her labor started." "She's dead? Don't joke around." "The funeral is about to start. If you feel any remorse, come right now." I just informed him of the location of the funeral and immediately ended the call. He rang back immediately, but I didn't want him disturbing my farewell to my daughter, so I ignored him and turned off my phone. When the time came, the funeral was carried out solemnly. "I'm so sorry, Karen. It must have been hard for you, and I'm sorry I didn't realize it sooner." Tears kept falling no matter how I tried to wipe them away. Next to me, I could see my husband biting his lip, keeping his head down, desperately holding back his tears. After the cremation, as I was carefully holding the small box with Karen's ashes, her husband and her mother-in-law finally arrived. They were shocked to see the sorrow-filled faces of those present. Furthermore, it seemed they had come straight from the airport. Her husband was wearing a Hawaiian shirt, and her mother-in-law had on a large-brimmed straw hat with her sunglasses still on. My husband's face turned into that of a demon's. "What's with that disrespectful attire? Can't you at least dress appropriately for a funeral?" "Well, we had to hurry because of what you said." Before making any excuses, apologized to our daughter, sincerely. Then, her son-in-law, rather than breaking down in front of her portrait as I thought he would, let out a snort and chuckled. "I should be the one receiving an apology. Who's going to take care of the house now? Anybody can give birth." She was an utterly hopeless wife. What a despicable thing to say. "I'm just telling it like it is." His mother, sitting next to him, fervently nodded. "That's right." Angry, my hand tightened up into a fist, my nails digging into my skin, a sharp pain shooting up. My usually gentle husband had an uncharacteristically fierce look in his eyes, a sight I had never seen before. Yet, he didn't seem bothered by it. "So, did she have a girl?" "Yes." "I knew it. If only you could have given me a boy to carry on the family name. You're just a useless, incompetent daughter-in-law." I gritted my teeth, suppressing the urge to lash out at him. "I don't need the kid. Raise it yourselves." "That was the plan from the start. Besides, you and Karen's divorce was already finalized." "What? Divorce?" "I submitted the divorce papers at Karen's request. You wrote them yourself, right? Used them as a threat?" Karen, who had been tolerating all sorts of abuse because she believed her child needed a father, had entrusted me with the divorce papers because she feared she couldn't protect the child. Karen won custody, so we will take responsibility for raising the child. "You went and filed the papers without permission? But since Karen's gone, by default, I get custody. I'll raise the kid, so pay up child support." "Do you understand what you're saying?" "Yeah, hand over the kid. I'll take care of her for free. Just pay me." "How despicable. We've already applied for guardianship, so you're the one who's going to pay child support." "Huh? You're greedier than I thought. But I have Karen's life insurance payout. I can afford to pay around $1,000. I was taken back by my son-in-law's words. It sounded like he had planned for Karen to pass away first. "Wait, you mean—" "Everything went according to plan. Karen finally made herself useful, huh? Ha ha. So you deliberately left our daughter?" "Well, yeah." I was so shocked I nearly collapsed. but my husband caught me in the nick of time. Even he was shaking his shoulders in disbelief, whispering, "I can't believe it." The relatives around us started to whisper and exchange glances. When I told my mother-in-law the baby was a girl, she yelled at me, "You can't even give me a grandson. You're such a useless daughter-in-law." My husband told me, "You're a total failure. A hopeless woman. Disgusting." I was really sad, but I thought they'd love the baby once she was born, so I have to endure it for now. I took my daughter's diary out from my bag and began to read. In the scorching midsummer sun, my mother-in-law made me go shopping. When I got back, she immediately made me pull weeds from the garden. She kept ordering me around, even making me redo dinner if she didn't like it. I don't know what to do. All the reasons for my daughter's exhaustion during her last month of pregnancy were written in the diary. "How dare you take that without permission? You're nothing but a thief. And you made sure we couldn't contact her. Our daughter wanted to come home for the birth, but you made her give up and left her alone. She must have felt so helpless." "I don't care about any of that." They seemed to show no sign of remorse, appearing completely oblivious to the depth of their sins. That's when a thunderous roar from my husband echoed across the room. Enough is enough. Our anger, as well as that of our relatives, was insatiable. We made them prostrate themselves right there on the spot. My son-in-law, finally realizing his situation, changed his attitude, as though flipping the palm of his hand. Okay, I get it. Just give me a break already." "Oh, this isn't over. The president of the company you work for knows what you did to our daughter. You're likely to be fired." "What? Why?" "The president and I are old classmates. It's a small world." And not just that, the neighbors know too. When I went to my daughter's house, a concerned neighbor had approached me. I told him about Karen's death and explained everything that had happened. "Feel the weight of your sins and live the rest of your life in regret." "There's no need to go that far." As they slumped in defeat, I relayed another important piece of information. "Also, I am the beneficiary of my daughter's life insurance." "What? Why is that?" My son-in-law and his mother exchanged a look of utter shock. I found a piece of paper in my daughter's diary. It was a life insurance document. My daughter had changed the beneficiary to me without telling anyone. "I bet it's a real bummer seeing all of your plans fall apart." "Seriously, I was counting on that money." "Also, I've already filed a report with the police for abandoning your responsibility to protect. It'll be quite troublesome since you've added the crime of leaving our daughter for the purpose of receiving the life insurance money." "The police? Please, spare me! Forgive me!" Pale and trembling, my son-in-law and his mother were prostrating themselves on the floor, but I had absolutely no intention of forgiving them. "I will never forgive you. Experience the depths of that." Soon, a police car that one of our relatives had called had arrived. As they were being taken away, the two cried pitifully. Everyone present watched them with cold eyes. Afterward, I hired a lawyer to claim child support from my son-in-law and his mother. I am praying they will be severely punished for driving our daughter to death. Regardless of the crimes they're charged with, they'll never be able to live a peaceful life as they once did. The unemployed son-in-law and his mother, who will forever be pointed at by the neighbors. The baby my daughter gave birth to is now being raised by us. The life insurance money that was paid out will all be used for the baby's life. The sadness of losing my daughter will never disappear, but there are many moments when I feel saved just by seeing this child smile. From now on, I will shower this child with the love that my daughter was unable to express.
You're so impatient. Isn't that adorable? A son will always love his mom, no matter how old he gets. In the otherwise quiet house, only the bathroom was abuzz. Without a doubt, it was my mother and my husband in there. The third person was undeniably my mother-in-law. Their excitement was mounting on the other side of that door. If I were to speak up now, would my voice, which shouldn't be here, reach them? My name is Abby. By some accounts, I'm a career woman. Even after marriage, I've continued to work hard. And now, at 39, I hold a responsible position. In my stead, the house husband role is filled by my husband, John, who is 10 years younger and currently works from home. As our daughter Ellie grows up, John has steadily become a better cook. Moreover, he has become quite the expert in childcare, and thanks to him, Ellie, now 5 years old, has grown into a lively girl who loves playing outdoors. Our house is close to my in-laws' place. It was initially a rental owned by my father-in-law. When the previous tenants moved out, he refurbished it into a beautiful standalone home. Gratefully, he gave it to our family as a wedding gift. We also have my sister-in-law's family living nearby. They have a child of the same age as Ellie, and we enjoy a close-knit family relationship. Additionally, John has a good relationship with his mother, while I've always had a tough relationship with my mother. I had always admired their healthy parent-child relationship, even before we got married. Still, the reason I cannot warm up to my own mother is probably because I can't accept her audacious habit of using my cosmetics without my permission. Our relationship with my parents, who lives within biking distance in the next town, is somewhat lukewarm. Our peaceful daily life was shattered due to an incident that happened on a public holiday. That day, I woke up feeling sluggish, but since I had no fever, I thought I was just tired and went to work as usual. While we are off on weekends, we work on public holidays. It is only with the support of my family that I am able to continue this way of working. However, my body couldn't be persuaded by my will alone, and I had to leave work early in the afternoon, after a coworker noticed that I wasn't feeling well. I rested a little in the company's break room, and then returned home. I think it was a little past 2 p.m. when I arrived. "I'm home," I called out when I opened the front door, but there was no reply from either Ellie or John. I saw 2 familiar pairs of shoes neatly aligned near the front door as I was thinking about reducing Ellie's nap times in preparation for her starting elementary school. Even though I found it odd, I wanted to change into comfortable clothes, so first I headed to the bathroom to wash my hands. The sliding door connecting the hallway straight to the bathroom was open as usual, but I stopped before entering, unable to take another step forward. I saw scattered adult clothing and underwear, and from the bathroom, I could hear cheerful voices. They were unmistakably those of John and my mother-in-law, and even my own mother. Despite my confusion, I instinctively covered my mouth and managed not to scream. Could it really be John and the others in the bathroom? I couldn't believe it as I strained my ears to listen. I had never heard such a sweet, coquettish voice from the mothers, but when I thought about it, matching it with the shoes at the entrance, it was undeniable that those 3 were in the bathroom. "Isn't Ellie off from kindergarten today? Where did you leave her?" "I left her with my buddy. Don't worry, he has kids about the same age as Ellie, so it's easy to make excuses to Abby. And I've told him I've got an important online meeting I can't miss, so he understands that I'll be at home and might pick her up late. So forget all of that. Let's not waste our precious time together." The 3 of them, unaware of my return, were having a great time. My mother blushing like a maiden, and my mother-in-law pleading in a voice that was hard to believe was directed at her son, and John seemingly satisfied managing the 2. 3 voices I didn't want to hear echoed through my head in the small bathroom. Ugh, disgusting. Overcome with nausea, I crumbled to the floor. I wasn't sure if the involuntary sound I made was due to my sarcastic feeling that the 3 of them, who were obviously enjoying themselves, wouldn't hear me, or whether I wanted them to realize I was there. All I knew was that I felt so sick, I was about to collapse. After a while, I managed to overcome my nausea by crouching down and covering my ears. Then, while being careful of the frosted glass used for the bathroom door, I managed to lock the exterior lock. Who would have imagined that the child safety lock I installed when Ellie started crawling would be used for such a thing? Then I carefully took a tension rod from the entrance closet and used it to gather the scattered clothes. I also closed the sliding door facing the hallway so that the 3 of them would not be able to get out immediately if they noticed. My fingertips, drained of blood and cold as ice, had not yet recovered, but a strange determination was rising. I couldn't let the 3 of them get away with this. But in my still confused head, I couldn't think of anything. So I secured the sliding door with the rod I had in my hand to buy some time. When I entered the living room with a pile of clothes, I felt relief that I had passed the first hurdle without the three noticing. However, at the same time, the disgust was so great that even being in the same house was unbearable. Feeling dirty about the clothes I was holding, I dropped them all on the spot when I heard the annoying vibration sound. Looking up, it was my mother-in-law's phone left on the couch, and the caller was none other than her husband. I answered the phone as if I was given divine help and explained the situation. As I sorted out the situation in my head, I tried to communicate this ongoing, abnormal situation to my father-in-law as emotionless as possible. Even as I continued to explain while suppressing the nausea rising again, my father-in-law, still confused, said in a flat voice, "I'll be there as soon as possible," and hung up the phone. But having talked with him, I regained some composure and made the call to the next person on my phone. A few minutes after I finished the call and sat down in the hallway, the bathroom across the door was filled with a different kind of noise than before. The sound of the mothers pounding on the frosted door so hard they seemed to be breaking it, and John's voice demanding the door be unlocked after realizing the exterior lock was closed. I turned on the light on my side, and my silhouette, which could probably be clearly seen from the other side, made the three of them stop in their tracks. With an attempt at a calm voice, full of irony, I delivered the bad news. "You should have taken your time. All the family members except the girls will be here soon, so you'll be busy right away. Shouldn't you have enjoyed your time while you could?" After finishing the call with my father-in-law earlier, I had also contacted my father and sister-in-law. My sister-in-law and her husband had been at the local park with their daughter. One of their mom friends, who was also at the park with her child, agreed to look after their daughter, so they were hurrying over to us. My father, who was livid over the phone to a terrifying degree, should also arrive soon. "Hold on, Abby. This is not what it looks like. I mean, we were a little sweaty and thought it would be more efficient to shower together, so it's not like that." Beside John, who was making incomprehensible excuses, my mother-in-law and mother were emotionally shouting to unlock the door. I averted my gaze from beyond the mosaic-covered door and persisted in ignoring them. Several minutes later, my father-in-law, sister-in-law, and her husband, and my father, all arrived in that order. When I steeled myself and opened the bathroom door, the three of them were completely deflated and had shrunk down. Seeing their nakedness, my father-in-law nearly fainted, barely held up by my sister-in-law. My father was so angry, his blood vessels looked like they would burst, and immediately lunged at my mother. As my sister-in-law's husband and I held on to my father to stop his punches, I truly felt how difficult it was to stay sane amidst this hellish scene. Once my sister-in-law's husband separated my father from the three, I put some energy into my weakening legs and demanded an explanation from John and the others. Given the situation, they started explaining without any pretense of hiding anything, and we were simply disillusioned by their humanity when we heard what they had to say. John had first become physically involved with my mother. This was a deeply rooted issue, since the very fact that John had married me was because my mother had caught his interest. He had never shown any signs of being attracted to my mother since our marriage, and had played the role of a good husband and father in front of me, all the while aggressively pursuing my mother behind my back. My mother, flattered by the advances of a man younger than her own daughter, started to enjoy her relationship with John and eventually gave in to his physical demands. My mother-in-law, who accidentally became aware of their immoral games, instead of reproaching them, chose to join in. Apparently, her logic was, if it was okay for my mother, who was of the same age, then it was okay for her too. And in the end, it turned out to be so. After we received a house as a gift from my father-in-law, John would invite either my mother or mother-in-law to our house for intercourse on the days when I was at work. He would invite one of the two during the weekdays, while Ellie was at kindergarten, and the other on holidays. Sometimes he would leave Ellie with his sister or a friend of his, and the three of them would have an affair, as in this case. Their relationship, which had lasted far longer than we could have imagined, had recently evolved into a ménage à trois, and we were rendered speechless when they told us they had been seeking this thrill about once a week. But it's not what you think. We didn't intend to break up any relationships. We just had aligning interests. It was just a sort of stress relief, you know? She laughed. My mother's words, uttered with a nonchalant laugh, shattered the silence. I remembered when I was still living at home with my parents. My mother had nonchalantly used my lipstick, which didn't suit her at all, and tossed my makeup bag back to me, saying she just wanted to try it out. She was always that kind of person, smiling while doing things I disliked as long as it pleased her. I had been shocked ever since I heard the voices coming from the bathroom. But here, I finally felt a rage that could be described as hatred. My mother-in-law, similarly, began speaking in a cheerful voice, also wearing a smile. That's right. We all have families, you know. I mean, I'm doing it with my real son. I have no further feelings about this. Don't worry. We'll stop this entirely. So, Abby, please don't make that scary face, right? Before I could respond to being addressed, her husband was the first to speak. What do you mean, we all have families? You're the ones who destroyed those. I've had enough of your consideration. I'm going to divorce you, so do whatever you want. Such a strong declaration of divorce was unthinkable from the father-in-law, who until a moment ago had been pale and leaning on his daughter for support. My father, who had been directing his anger at the three of them the whole time, followed suit as if he had been overtaken. Of course, I felt the same. Congratulations, John. We're also getting divorced, and now you three can get along as much as you like. Excuse my language, but just looking at you all makes me want to vomit. So I'm leaving. You don't ever need to show your faces to me again. Perhaps they had never dreamed they would be confronted with divorce by their spouses. Each of them begged for forgiveness in their own words. They pleaded with my sister-in-law and her husband, the only neutral parties in the room, to mediate. But my sister-in-law and her husband, who had been looking at them with open contempt, declared they wanted nothing to do with them and left, supporting her wobbling father. John, however, clung to me, begging for mercy and saying that he couldn't live if I left him. But he had just admitted that he married me to get closer to my mother. I couldn't comprehend how he could think we would continue as a couple. Without even looking at the three of them, I said to my father, "Let's go. Abby, I'll really do anything, just not divorce." Seeing John reach out to me, my father finally threw a punch. At John's sudden stagger backwards, both my mother-in-law and mother let out short screams. I took one last look at their frightened faces, declared that I would sue John for alimony and child support, and left. When I returned to my parents' house after picking up Ellie, I found a barrage of messages on my phone from the three of them. I didn't respond to any of them. After that, all three families ended in divorce. Both my mother-in-law and mother were penniless after being sued for alimony that they couldn't make up with the division of assets. My father-in-law and father had arranged for them to pay me alimony first since I had a child, and I've had no contact with them ever since. Because we had all lived close to each other, word of the incident spread quickly in our neighborhood, full of acquaintances. My mother-in-law, no longer able to bear being shunned by close friends and pointed at by mere acquaintances as disgusting, moved far away. My mother set up residence in town due to her lingering attachment to John and my father, but soon everyone around her, including her relatives, came to know the cause of her divorce, and she found herself alone. No one was there to help her live alone for the first time at this age, and she is still living in loneliness. John was harshly rebuked and cut off by the friend who had been taking care of Ellie for him. It was only natural that the anger of the friend who had unknowingly been involved in the situation wouldn't die down, and John was devastated by being rejected by a friend of 10 years and feeling misunderstood. If only he had realized his mistake there. But he went on to tell a colleague at work, with whom he was close, about the incident. This led to the cause of the divorce spreading in the company, and John quickly lost his place there. He had just started going into the office again as remote work was lifted, and it must have been a tough environment for him. However, he had no savings, since he had paid me alimony, and couldn't quit his job as he needed to keep working to pay child support. I moved to a child-friendly apartment that is well-equipped with soundproofing and is barrier-free, where my sister-in-law resides. My relationship with my sister-in-law and her husband remains strong. My father-in-law and father also come to our place often, and they have all been very supportive of Ellie's growth. Moreover, when our divorce was finalized, my father-in-law sold the house we were given and used that money to cover John's child support payments. The house, which had never been transferred to John's name due to gift tax implications, remained under my father-in-law's name, which made the process go smoothly. I had intended to receive child support for Ellie's sake, but my father-in-law's quick thinking really helped, since I didn't want any contact with John. From now on, I would like John to work hard to repay the child support that my father-in-law provided. Of course, out of our sight.